Good evening, and thank you to another edition of No Frequency here at River West Radio. I'm your host, Bill the Business Bulk, flying solo tonight. Dominic, of course, was in a horrifying plane crash, the only survivor, and he's currently in a death match against his nemesis, the guy with the funny bones. So, good luck out there, Dom. Go for the body, and keep your combinations good and tight. Protect the face. So aren't we all excited to be here again? I wasn't expecting to fly solo tonight, but that's the way it goes. I do have some stuff to talk about. I have some things to reveal. I have some amazing insights into the problems that affect our society and are daily ruining all the good things that we had hoped for as children. But before all of that, I have to do something. I have to read the disclaimer. So prepare yourselves for some sweet, sweet disclaimery action. Some law action. The kind we all like. Welcome to No Frequency. My name is William Bulk, and I'm the current producer of this show. The things you will hear over the next hour represent the views of No Frequency and the people making them. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. And as always, any financial advice, business decisions, or trading and or investing information is solely your responsibility to take with a grain of salt. Because I have absolutely no business telling anyone how to make money. Unless they're running a gas station, in which case they should listen to me exclusively. But who knows with them? They, very close-knit bunch, if you know what I'm saying. Having some trouble with my mic stand here. Let's see if we can get this a little bit more in my face so we can actually hear what I'm saying. Am I coming in clear? Am I coming in loud? Am I coming in sexy? Sure hope so. Couldn't live with myself if that weren't the case. So it's another Monday. Weekend's over. Work week's begun. For those of us who spend all our time at work, it's just another day. Had some strange weather we've been having. Last week with our 40, 45 degree days. 42, 45 degrees, I should say. And then ice storm to follow that all up. Not the fun one where Frodo gets killed. But the kind that sucks and puts a half-inch of ice onto everything makes it impossible to walk safely. Which is of great concern to me with all of my loose joints. Oh, that's excellent. Thanks, Core. So, gonna do a short bit of thanks for listenings. Thanks, Core. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Fred. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Jamie. Matt, thank you, too. I realize it's not as good as TV, but at least it's real. To Lucid, who may or may not be listening, depending on what my computer is doing. I got a time-lapse camera set up to see if she sits by the speaker. I'm interested to see if she follows my voice. Theron, Newman, Dominic, if you're running your FM radio through your ears. Other than that, anyone who's listening, I appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show. It's going to be a good one. Lots of things to talk about. Lots of things that move me. Lots of things that will move you. Like a freight train of information. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Where to begin? Well, let's start with the obvious. Apple, the company, sell your shares now. Because apparently without Steve Jobs, it's the least innovative company on Earth. And will be slowly fading into the background as Samsung and Nokia take over. And with Google backing those up with their Android system, there's almost no reason to last with the iPhones or the iPads. In other business news, Toyota overtook GM to become the world's top-selling car company again. As of this morning, Toyota revealed it sold 9.7 million cars and trucks worldwide in 2012. And it's actually not done counting. GM reported 9.29 million. So 500,000 more cars sold by Toyota. And that's interesting. They're bouncing back. I guess the new versions of the Camry have kicked off a Japanese renaissance of sorts. A new Wang dynasty, if you will. Other interesting things. We didn't get to touch on it last week, and I regret that, but the $1 trillion coin that they were talking about minting. I've actually been following this very closely because it's as much as I dislike the idea, it's a clever idea, and cleverness will always catch my attention. See, the way it is that the Bureau of the Treasury and the Fed are given permission to print money. I think we can all get behind that Department of the Treasury. But it's regulated to what values they can put into that money, how much money they can actually print, based on gold, silver, paper money, nationally backed trust bonds, things of that nature. But it actually doesn't regulate platinum in any way. So what they were suggesting is the Treasury would produce a $1 trillion platinum coin, a coin worth $1 trillion, which even just saying that sounds like something a child would say in kindergarten. And it was going to be multiples of them, not just one. There were going to be like 6 of them, $6 trillion coins. And they would deposit them in the Fed. And since the very base of our money system is that it is backed by the full force and weight of the U.S., the $1 trillion coin would be worth $1 trillion. And we could use that being in the Fed as a savings account to pay off other debts and things. It would not have worked. Because although we say it's worth $1 trillion, all we would need is for international trade to break with the dollar, and suddenly it would be worth zero, no matter what we say. So that's probably why they're not doing it. The second thing is they were calling it a one-time measure. If there's one thing we've learned over the years from our government is that every one-time measure is one time to get it started, and we spend the rest of our lives regretting that decision. But happily, I can agree with the current administration in not creating a $1 trillion coin. So we win. We don't need to worry about our childlike Congress getting rambunctious, which is nice, because really we need to cut some spending. Don't know if you all watched the Golden Globes. I didn't, but I was fascinated by the overwhelming response to Jodie Foster's speech, both good, bad, and indifferent. More ink has been spilled on this than I think the shooting in Connecticut, which is saying not much considering how little they actually wrote that mattered on that, but there's still a ton. I've got 8 pages here just based on that speech, not including the other pages that allude to it at times. It's crazy. Now we're going to get into let's get into some interesting stuff. Let's get into something. Let's talk about the flu vaccine. Because currently there is a horrifying flu epidemic killing trillions of people across the country. I can say trillions because it's not even a real number anymore. All across the country and the world, everybody's dying. They've all got the flu. I do feel that even though it's a 900% increase in Boston alone, that is being blown horribly out of proportion. And that they're using this as the cudgel with which they will beat us into flu vaccine submission. I've never gotten the flu vaccine. I'm not interested in getting the flu vaccine. Much like the movie Titanic, I plan on spending the rest of my life without ever getting the flu vaccine and being proud of that fact. I recognize that certain people in different segments of society are susceptible to death by flu, and that's bad, and it sucks. But I feel like I don't need to be compelled to get it if I don't want to. Now, there are some jobs where they, as a requirement of employment, require that you get the flu vaccine. And in some instances, I can see that academically why they would do that. I disagree with it. But, nurses, doctors, school bus drivers, school teachers, these are people who maybe should be getting vaccinated for the safety of the greater number of people they come into contact with who are either immunosuppressed or not old enough to have built up an immunity or too old to have any more immunity left. But I'm a 33-year-old guy. I work at a gas station. The idea that I should be compelled to take a vaccine, which isn't actually nearly as effective as they claim. Every year we discover more and more that it is basically just a stopgap measure for the few that it actually affects, because the flu vaccine is created before the flu season starts. And every flu season we have a new strain of flu. So what they basically do is take a best shot guess at what flus are coming up, kill them all, toss them in the vaccine, and shoot you up with it. Now, I'm not one of these idiots who thinks vaccines cause autism, and I'm not one of these idiots who think that vaccines will make you sick. Actually, they make me sick. I'm allergic to some of the carriers that they use in there, the fillers. I can't be the only one, I'd have to imagine. But the flu vaccine, the flu-y part of it, the flushedness of it is basically a best guess. So the idea is that they would compel you to get a vaccine that may or may not be effective anyway. And upon discovering that it might be the wrong one, they will rush to create a new vaccine for the current one to give to all the people who don't have the sick yet. I'm not interested in being a part of that. I'm an adult. I have, on occasion, thought for myself. And I've actually thought about this because a business I work for has suggested that all management and above get the flu vaccine. If that becomes an actual edict by which we must adhere in order to maintain employment, I will be finding a different job. No one who isn't me is going to be telling me what I can and cannot do with my medical existence. So, we'll have to see how this year's flu goes out. I remind you that the bird flu, with the whole 8,000 people who died, had a lower death rate than the common cold that year. So now that I've gone on about that, let's keep on the health kick, though. So I got some health news that I got to share with the world writ large. The pain thing. I have pain. Anyone who knows me knows I'm always in pain. I get headaches, backaches, neck aches, shoulder pain, hands hurt, knees hurt. Well, one knee hurts, the other one's numb. I don't know. It probably hurts. Finally started the process of discovering what exactly is wrong, what issues I've got, how we can fix it, which is good, because I shouldn't be constantly in pain for no reason, taking 16 or 20 Advil every day, not to mention the Aleve and the aspirin, the occasional Tylenol to knock down the headache the others cause. Turns out I need shoulder surgery, which is cool, because I'm kind of excited because it's an actual surgically fixable issue in my shoulder here. It's actually called an acromion, whatever. OS acromion, 2 words. What it comes down to is when you're born, you're much like your skull, your shoulders are not linked together, loose bones, so you can squeeze out the vagina. Right? As you get older, the bones fuse and create clavicle, shoulder blade, and all these things. And 1.4% of the population, and I remember this because it was a very interesting number. He was very particular, my doctor. The fusing of the shoulder doesn't make it all the way to the end. So what ends up happening is you have a small piece of bone that is attached at the very edges by tendon or muscle or whatever soft tissues are available in that time frame. And it sort of just sits there, generally not doing anything bad. Doesn't usually cause pain, doesn't cause weakness. There's no outward signs. If you didn't look for it, you wouldn't know it. In my case, it causes pain because it's actually far down to the end and is essentially floating at the end of a string, like a bobber in a lake, pinching nerves and interrupting musculature. So that's fun. Not to mention the thumbnail-sized spurs that are inside the socket joint of my shoulder. But on the upside, I do not have any issues with my rotator cuff. No muscle, no tendon issues. So the solution, of course, is surgery. They go in laparoscopically, I'm lucky for that, and shave down the actual bones. And they ablate the ossicromion, either shaving it completely out or removing it in a single piece or exploding it, I would imagine, much like they do wisdom teeth. The doctor is 100% confident that it will relieve my pain permanently in that shoulder, because it's basically taking what causes the pain and getting rid of it. So I am excited. I have that scheduled for the end of February. My only concern, of course, is the painkillers, but I'll sort that out when it comes up. Perhaps I find some other method, because this is, my understanding, more painful than any other surgery you can have, because so much of the bone is left raw after the surgery internally. But once it heals, it's healed, which is, there's finally a carrot out there that I'm hungry for. I'm going for that carrot. So good times for me. So yeah, looking forward to that. It'd be nice to just be able to lay in bed and fall asleep without coughing and blinding myself with pain. So that's some medicine that I enjoy. Destiny's Child is reuniting during the Super Bowl. Sorry. But, just saw that on a sheet of paper and I thought I'd share it with you. So yeah, the surgery thing, that'll be fun. Up next will be the knees. The knee, I don't know, both of them, I'm sure, like I said. Yeah, had to go for that MRI for the shoulder. I kind of dig getting MRIs because it's like being inside a womb. You get all wedged in. It's a pretty big guy, so a little too big guy. It's like a sausage casing for x-rays. I've got some new head pills, trying to quell the racket in my brain. That's a new one. After my experiences in childhood, I was always nervous about going back to try a new method for controlling my insanity, but turns out they've gone a long way since I was 10, and I have learned that the downsides of these pills are hardly a pittance compared to the upsides of these pills. I've been sleeping almost 6 hours a night now, which is like a vacation, basically. I can sit in a quiet room and not have to listen to the white noise of my brain that occasionally gives way to whole sentences and words. I've forgiven myself for many past transgressions because I realized it was silly that I was angry. So, good times. We're grown-ups now. We are finally at that point where we need to fix ourselves or we're going to fall. And I'm done falling. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Maybe I'll get some Rogaine and fix these widow's peaks. Quick mention, though, for the for the video watching crowd, anyone watching right now, you are watching the Hamster Ball sitting there on Center Street. It's such a good-looking car. I actually took it for a car wash yesterday to get the ice off of it because I didn't feel like scraping. Best idea ever, because I've got a sunroof that had, the half-inch ice on it, but it was almost clear because it's on the roof. The sun all day had melted it to that point where it's almost like stained glass. So as the foaming polish and everything was going over, it was making some pretty cool patterns and shapes and colors and things. It's an interesting time. And actually, my roof on my car is still covered in frozen bubbles, which is kind of neat. Not your average, everyday, normal crap. Some good times there. Now we're going to walk away from all of my issues. Wow. Except for the fact that I'm losing the sight in my right eye suddenly. Let's go back to some business stuff. Some business this week. We all love business. Let's see, where was it? There we go. Kickstarter. I believe we're all familiar with Kickstarter now. It's a community funding for creative projects, entrepreneurial projects in some instances. 2012 was a phenomenal year for Kickstarter. They had 17 projects that raised more than $1 million, and not a single one before that. So 2012 was the year of the $1 million Kickstarter. They had a 221% jump from 2011. Total of $319 million for startups, covering 18,000 projects. Their biggest project, of course, was the Pebble watch, $10.3 million for that. They do point out in this article here, and this is the important thing about Kickstarter that a lot of people don't realize, is the number of projects that are not only funded but actually deliver on the promised thing is very small. And I think this goes to some of my own ideas on how businesses work and how creativity happens. One of the biggest hurdles to overcome when creating anything, business, product, is the money hurdle. You need the money to get started. And that's cool. You do need that money. One of the things that drives people to succeed in these instances with small projects, as it were, is that the work you put into getting the money teaches you essentially the lesson of how hard it is to create the product. It might take $500,000 to get your product created and up off the ground and safe and onto the shelves. But the process of getting to that $500,000, even up to 4 years ago, that perseverance that went into that affected the way that you actually created your product or your business. You had to get creative. You had to be 100% invested yourself. You had to have the drive to make it to the point where you see your creation come to fruition. And I think in some ways Kickstarter does a disservice to those people. Now, I'm not talking about the creative things, funding for a play or to cut a demo tape. Those are things that you can do. You just need help with. I'm talking about things like this Pebble watch, some of the other weird actual products, devices, things you put your hands on. If you fall backwards into a pile of money, you lose that drive because now you have it. So now you can sit and you can tweak and you can play and you can go and you can do and you can sleep at night, and you're not thinking 100% about how you're going to make it work. And I think that's the negative that no one really talks about too much, that it takes the challenge out of being something better, which is unfair to some people. Of course, these are all arbitrary examples. But the guy who's going to create a new multicolored pen that only uses one cartridge, or a cartridge and an alkylist, say, to create a catalyst, rather. Well, it'd probably be alkaline, so an alkylist. Whatever. We'll make up words. I got an English degree. Let's say you're going to create a pen, and you got one tube of ink and one tube of catalyst. But with those two, you can dial a dial, and you get any one of 1,000 colors. It's arbitrarily again. Now, that's not a small... It's a small product, but it's not a small idea. It's a huge idea. It's a very far-reaching idea. With probably 1 million applications I can't even think of. And the process that people would go through to get that from their head onto the napkin, into the computer, at the production facility in China, to the shelves and price pointed. If you skip having to search for the money for each one of those steps, the temptation, and this is human nature, is not to use that spare time to do your job better. It's to take that spare time and go out with friends and get some noodles and company and hit the stores and sleep late. And it's outside the realm of how human nature works. And of course, on top of it, you're pledging some of your money to the company, which is what they're there for. You're pledging some of your products to the baggers because you need to entice them to give you money. So you're really ultimately spreading yourself thin without working for it, which probably isn't as clear as I'd like it to be, but in my head it makes perfect sense. You lose a lot with that. You're not getting the full force effect of your idea. You're not pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. If I can just go online and anonymously ask for money for a book I'm writing because I need to pay my rent for a couple months, there's nothing... First off, there's nothing in place to say that that's what I'm going to use the money for. I could spend it all on hookers and blow, and there's no comeuppance. But I promise, everybody a signed copy of my book and a picture of me standing next to a Corvette and a banana with the eyes glued on it and whatever. There's also no... It's an implied promise. It is not a guarantee. It is basically set on the honor system, which again, human nature is not terribly honorable. It'd be nice if it was, but people tend towards the easy more than they do the hard. Being honest is hard. Especially when it comes to things involving money and unique ideas. So, interesting point though. 221% jump from the year before. My question for that would be, is it that there's more projects being produced? Are people asking for more money? Or are there more people trying for smaller amounts for projects that they're never going to come through on? It's an interesting question. One that we probably won't find the answer to. Time to make that noise. So again, I was expecting Dominic to be here, so I had some stuff that I was going to bring up that was going to send him off the rails, but I'm not going to argue with myself because I agree with the things I think, weirdly enough. But again, I am on the radio, and that does make me special. So at least way specialer than you. You're just sitting there listening to my sexy. I'm living it. Oh, I already mentioned the Apple thing. Aaron Swartz. Let's keep going with the technology. Aaron Swartz was the pioneer behind Reddit, the website where people read things yesterday and read them again today, so it's been read. I've actually been featured on Reddit more than once with my gas station and our crazy signage, which is fun. I guess Aaron Swartz has had emotional issues for the majority of his life, from what I was reading about it. I don't have all that information here. I was reading that kind of out of curiosity yesterday. he was currently being not treated at all. That was the issue. He was currently being investigated by the Massachusetts Attorney General and MIT itself, where he went to school. He apparently stole millions and millions of scholarly journal articles through hacking, and they were suing, suing and B, prosecuting for the theft. Aaron Swartz. Eventually, they did drop the charges, and those archives were open for the public to use. The treatment that he received, his family is coming out and saying that probably contributed quite a bit to his suicide. It's actually a terrible case. He's one of these geniuses who affected the world around him greatly. He's basically like what Mark Zuckerberg could have been if he wasn't such a jerk. He was a nice guy. He was a sweet guy from what I was reading. He was exceptionally intelligent on a smattering of subjects that are far too long to list here. So, this generation's Einstein. Gone. Thanks, law. That's fun. I do have some fun stuff here I'm going to get into. You're all going to love this, but I'm going to save that for a few minutes here. We're down to our last 16, which I'm surprised how quick the evening is going. What else is happening in the business world? South Park. Everybody loves South Park. Trey and Matt. First off, if you haven't seen 6 Days to Air, write that down right now and buy a Netflix account. Go and watch 6 Days to Air. It's phenomenal. It's a documentary about the process that the whole team at South Park Studios goes through to create an episode. And they do it in 6 days, which is beyond the industry record by like an order of magnitude. 3 solar units from what everyone else does. And it's interesting to see the two of them, Trey and Matt, talking about it because they are so hands-on. They're not the aloof kind of creators where they just have the idea and then farm it out to everybody else to be funny. These guys are right in the thick of it. They're doing the voices. They're writing the jokes. They're animating some of it. It's a very hands-on process, and they don't sleep for 6 days, which is what makes that cool to me. They benefit, of course, because it is a very rudimentary animation that they use, and now that they've got the computers to do it, it's even, in some ways, a lot easier because they just hit a macro and suddenly the kids are smiling or crying or laughing or running or kicking. But even at that, the articles, they are not articles. Do not get your news from South Park. Please do not get your news from Comedy Central. Despite that it's the 5th most watched news broadcast in the country. Sadness. The South Park creators, though, being so hands-on, that's where I was going with this, and such a short time frame, they are very current, where Simpsons, some of those are done months in advance, where they're making reference to Zumba when, rather, reference to Tae-Bo, while South Park is making reference to Zumba. That I think has really contributed to their success, the prescience of their art, as it were, their comedy, their complete disregard for social norms, I think helps as well. We are living in a far ruder society than we were even 20 years ago. For better or worse, I'm not really going to say. It's moral ambiguity. Depends on how you feel about things. I'm a traditionally rude person because I have this social disorder where I don't care. And they seem to suffer the same thing. They've decided the point of the whole thing. Should probably slide into that. They are launching their own production company called Important Studios. This is after 16 seasons of South Park and the Book of Mormon, the smash Broadway hit. Michael, I think you should be the Mormon. You look like a Mormon. Yeah, I said that. They will ultimately have the power to finance their own TV and theater production, which is really their way to go. And they are quoted as saying in the New York Times, having worked with several different studios over the years, we came to realize that our favorite people in the world are ourselves. That speaks a lot to them. Sounds arrogant? Should be. They're tremendously wealthy. They still do acid for fun. They have created one of the most memorable set of characters to come out of the cartoon world since people used to like Family Guy. So, it's good on them. I think I've actually exhausted, basically, all of my newsy stuff. Bringing home some of our Afghan troops. That's good. They're still trying to get this gun control thing sorted out by knee-jerking every idea they can come up with, rather than the obvious deregulation of the firearms industry. He's a fat chef. That's funny. Lol. LOL, as we say on the flip side. But now I've been distracted and I forget what I'm talking about. Oh, the gun control thing. So they're suggesting, on the one hand, publishing all ownership information, which newspaper just did a week before last, I believe it was, with an interactive map showing you where in the neighborhood all the guns were. If that sounds like a terrible idea, it is, and they actually believe that just yesterday, I don't want to say it was, might have just been reported yesterday, but within the last couple days, the first victim of a crime based on that map, the interactive map that showed where the gun owners were. It's a 70-year-old man. He wasn't at home, but the thieves broke in and went immediately to his gun safe, where he had a number of legally owned guns, and they tried to get in. They failed, and one of them has been caught. If, upon interrogation and questioning, it is discovered that they got the idea from seeing the map and they needed guns on the street themselves because, say they're thugs who rob people at gunpoint. They can't get their hands on a legal gun because that's traceable. It's good to know which houses have the guns. And then you do a little more research and find out who's the oldest. 70-year-old man gets robbed of his guns, and those guns get used in a crime. Guns that were in a safe that he doesn't actually take out very often because he is older, that not a lot of people know about. Well, now these criminals know, and they're going to his house and they're taking his guns. Well played, idiots. It's the most horrifying thing I've ever heard. On top of which, it also shows you then which houses don't have guns. So if you're really in the market for just jewelry, you know which house to break into and not be too concerned. So that's an interesting counterpoint to why the whole thing is idiotic. But they're suggesting now doing a statewide, this is in Connecticut, statewide interactive map, Freedom of Information Act, on all registered gun owners, which I think ultimately would do more damage to the non-gun owning people, because again, it shows the criminals which houses are unarmed, which means easier targets. And the criminals who are out there looking to get their hands on some guns without having to fill out paperwork will, of course, be able to do that much easier if they know which house to break into to get the guns. More often than not, when guns are involved in a theft, or rather where guns are the ultimate goal of a theft, violence is increased. It's not just knock a guy out and tie him on the floor. It's a knock a guy out and then cut his throat, because you don't want to risk getting killed yourself. And at the same time, it might increase the number of gun sales where people who would normally not have firearms, and being a firearm enthusiast, will say right off the bat, not everybody should have a gun. I can think of 5 people, 10 people now, who I know personally who should and do not have any business owning a gun. either because they're irresponsible, because they're not serious enough for it, they don't understand the consequences of ownership. Their knee-jerk reaction might be in fear to go and pick up a gun and possibly hurt someone else. Not cool with that. I do think the NRA needs to back off and actually work with lawmakers to create a sense of safety. Not that I think that it's going to end violence the way politicians simplistically seem to think. Gun violence has actually been dropping every year for the last decade and a couple. Just without the election cycle, Newton, which was entirely a tragedy, has become the rallying cry for gun control. But Adam Lanza did not own those guns. He stole those guns. And let's say someone is crazy enough to steal guns, they're crazy enough to use them. So they'll be killing our people. Wow, that's very loud. Can you hear that? Is that just like am I hearing that through my headphones or on my headphones? It's hard to say. Why not live? But yeah, so, it's a disappointment that cooler heads aren't prevailing and everybody's using emotion to further an agenda that no one actually is interested in. We've have a strange record related to that this Midwest of ours has broken. In the year 2012, more people were killed in the city of Chicago than allies were killed in Afghanistan. So way to go, Chicago, with your incredibly strict gun laws. You have succeeded in doing that. Oh, it's lame. I wish you didn't hear it. There's like an audience, though, so they're kind of... I don't know. I need to bring some egg crate or something and put it up here, because this is getting to the point where it's a little silly. But, well, I've only got 5-ish minutes left, so I'm gonna bring up this fun little thing that I found here. These are 17 euphemisms for sex from the 1800s. I don't know. Somehow they related to David Petraeus and Paula Broadwell. I'm going to ignore that part because that's just weird. And kind of makes me a little nauseous in my stomach bits. It is a bit dramatic and incredibly, stupidly, unnecessarily loud. So, we have... Oh, we are losing our minds here with this insane loudnessiness. God, it's so epic, though. How could I not like it? Losing my... There it is. That's what I'm looking for. Superb. Yeah. I'm not going to read all 17 because that's just silly. But, there's a basket making. Wow. That's one. Bread and butter, because one's on top of the other. Click it. Like cricket with an L. Face making. Guess babies have faces, so that's where that comes from. You're making faces. The blanket hornpipe. I don't know how you could really get that one to go. Blow the groundsels, which are, of course, 1800s slang for foundation timbers. So, you're blowing out the basement. The lobster kettle. This is a woman who sleeps with soldiers coming in at port and is said to make a lobster kettle of herself. At least it's not a red snapper, right? St. George, which is a woman on top, apparently, in the 1800s. Making a stitch. It's a casual affair. And a tiff, which we currently use as a term for a minor argument. Originally, it meant a quickie. So, I'm going to sign off here in a moment. I want to thank you all for listening. I love my audience. if I'm going to be flying solo from now on, I'm going to make sure Dom gives me a couple hours heads up instead of springing it on me 20 minutes beforehand, so I can be more well prepared. If you've got your next hour free, of course, hang in here for Extempo Radio with B.O. Day and his guests and callers. He's finally back in town, so he'll be here, so you can listen to the soothing, happy, sexy Brendan O'Day sounds. So, thanks again for listening. This is No Frequency. I'm Bill Bulk, and have a great evening. Have some soup. It's a soup kind of night. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.